distinguished guests, dear colleagues, dear participants, let me welcome you all to the second part of agenda item number 3, titled Environment in the Pan-European Region, Visions of 2030 and Beyond. Firstly, I would like to invite all delegations to refer to the summary of key findings and policy messages of the Pan-European Environmental Assessment as presented in the relevant document and to the published Pan-European Assessment that was distributed today. It is a great honor to first invite Ms. Elizabeth Windas da Silva of Portugal, Chair of the UNECE Committee of Environmental Policy, to moderate a discussion on the state of the environment in the Pan-European region. The panelists who will participate in the discussion are my very dear colleague, Savas Perdios, Deputy Minister of Tourism of the Republic of Cyprus, Mrs. Nino Tandilashvili, Deputy Minister of Environmental Protection and Agriculture of Georgia, and Mr. Yusipek Gazbegov, Deputy Chairman of the State Committee for Ecology and Environment Protection of Uzbekistan. Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, the Minister, and good afternoon to all participants to this amazing conference. The item on which I'm supposed to moderate a discussion, it's not an easy item. Environment in the Pan-European region, visions for 2030 and beyond, and we have heard so much about this. Yesterday and today, so much has been said. You received yesterday, you had it in your tables, the Pan-European Assessment, the 7 Pan-European Assessment. And as you know for sure, the first one was published in 1995. I believe that an interesting exercise is to make a comparison between the findings of the first assessment and the findings of this assessment. I don't want you to be depressed. Of course, that is not our aim here, but I think it's interesting to do this exercise. I did it myself, and there are important findings from this comparison. The assessment that you received yesterday and that we are going to discuss today is the result of a work of 2 years of many, many people. And it has the stamp of 2 international organizations. It has the stamp of UNECE and it has the stamp of UNEP. So I come to my wish today. I have 2 wishes to express during my interventions here today in this session. My first wish is that in the 8th Pan-European Assessment, we will have also the stamp of at least other 2 international organizations. I will not say their names. I will just say that one starts by OEC, and the other EE, perhaps an A at the end. Let's see what happens in the future. But I'm counting that the next assessment will join not only the contributions, because these 2 organizations contributed significantly to the work, but also with their stamp. I believe that working together is also a slogan we should use, and they use it for preparing this kind of very important reports. So, as I said, much has been said yesterday about the results of the assessment. And when I was preparing with colleagues for this session, with colleagues from UNEP and UNECE, and we were discussing the findings, I asked them, so do you want me to be the bird of disgrace? And they replied immediately, but do you want to lie? And no, I don't want to lie in this session. I don't want to lie to anyone. So because I do not want to lie, I decided not to tell you, not to speak about the free self-inflicted planetary crisis. And not to say that while countries in the pan-European region are expanding policies to tackle air pollution, and that some programs has been achieved, increased efforts are needed. I will also not say that although countries committed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, net emissions in the region are still rising, or that although decarbonization is becoming a strong narrative across the region, action still lags behind. I also decided not to say or not to underline that diffuse pollution in urban and industrial wastewater discharges remains significant in many locations, and that persistent organic contaminants are of great public health concern, or that practical achievements on water pollution are there, but they have not yet been implemented as deeply as they could be or should be. That the status of ecosystems remains a cause of concern. That overall biodiversity loss continues to occur. That soil sealing remains an issue of concern. As you can see, I was worried with this intervention because I really sound like the bird of disgrace. And that definitely waste generation continues to rise and exposure to hazardous chemicals also continues to rise. But when you look at the assessment, and there are so many findings which deserve our concern in the assessment, you will also see that there are many suggestions, many ideas for action to overcome these problems. On sustainable infrastructure, there is a concrete call for using nature-based solutions, resource efficiency, recycling, reuse in an environmental responsible, social, inclusive, economically viable way. On circular tourism economy, the advice is to develop accessibility of data on circular economy in tourism sector, because this is an essential step to evaluate the most effective and high impact investments. So what are we all encouraged to do? Because we are here also representing our countries, our governments, our administration. We are encouraged by the assessment to promote participation in multilateral environmental agreements and the harmonization of policies and legislation, to develop and adopt common and coherent policies for emerging topics, including circular economy and sustainable infrastructure, to strengthen mechanisms for monitoring the effectiveness of policies and legislation, including at international level. COVID offered us an opportunity. It was terrible from almost all points of view, but it also offered an opportunity to correct the path of resource exploitation and greenhouse gas emissions. So, and because I do not want to be the bird of disgrace and instead be the bird of hope, you will hear from our panelists today about concrete ideas, concrete actions, measures that in their countries were implemented that respond to the challenges identified in the assessment. And as such, and because we need to speed up and I'm not contributing to having a short session, I will ask my next panelists, and in fact, we will have a video from Ms. Viviane Huygens, Minister for the Environment of the Netherlands. We will hear a testimony through a video. And the question I asked her, well, what actions were being taken in the Netherlands to halt and reverse the continuing growth in municipal solid waste and to move waste management to circularity? We will hear the answer.
Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Unfortunately, I can't be with you in person today, but it's an honor and pleasure to address this session virtually. I am glad that the 7th Pan-European Environmental Assessment has shown some progress in key areas such as atmospheric air, greenhouse gas emissions, fresh water, chemicals, and waste. Despite this progress, many challenges in our region still exist, like on waste management, the topic of this session. The generated waste quantities are still growing, and we have to change that. The good thing is, internationally, the focus on circular economy has increased, and that's important. A circular economy isn't nice to have, it's need to have, especially if we want to tackle the 3 main planetary crises: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, and securing the supply of key resources for the energy transition. In our current linear economic system, we're running out of natural resources. We use too many raw materials and discard too many too soon. With a more efficient use of raw materials, we can reduce annual global emissions by 20% by 2050. What are we doing in the Netherlands? In my country, we're taking action based on a national government-wide program for a circular economy. We're working with industry, scientific institutions, and society to find and implement the best solutions. The Netherlands is a front-runner in recycling, but there is still more to be done. We need other strategies as well to increase, reuse, and repair. That's why we'll be adopting various initiatives, like the new legislation on single-use plastics. As of 2024, the use of disposable cups and cutlery will be banned at work, at festivals, and in restaurants and cafes. There's also the new extended producer responsibility legislation on textiles. From 2023, fashion brands, retailers, and importers of garments will bear responsibility for the collection, sorting, recycling, and reuse of products that they bring to the market. My message today is a positive one, as it can be done. The Netherlands stands ready to work with you to make the transition to a circular, low-carbon future. By working together, we can deliver on our shared global goals, the Paris Agreement goals, and the 2030 Agenda. Let's go circular together. I wish you all an inspiring session.
Thank you very much for the important contribution. And next in my list, I have Mr. Savas Perdios, Deputy Minister of Tourism, Republic of Cyprus. You have the floor.
Thank you. Well, first of all, welcome to Cyprus. I'm really glad you're all here. You flew from around the world, and that's a big honor for us. Now, you know, it's great to be a tourism destination, but there is one problem with being an island. You all want to come and visit us at the same time in the summer. This means that an excessive burden falls on our coastal areas because they are the most popular. And this makes our tourism industry very resource intensive. I will give you some examples. 90% of all our bed capacity is in coastal areas. 80% of all catering and entertainment operations are in coastal areas. All of our largest infrastructure projects are in coastal areas. So what does this mean? Environmental damage to our coastal areas, but more importantly for me, inequalities of income distribution and employment opportunities. Because if all the jobs are in the coastal areas, people leave from our villages to go and work and live in the coastal areas. This does not mean we don't want you to come on holiday in the summer. That's not what I'm saying. We, as a Ministry of Tourism, are doing 2 types of things to mitigate the fact that we are having this resource-intensive tourism in the summer. And one is macro level, wider policies. And the second type is more specific types of policies at the micro level. Although I do not have a lot of time, I will be giving you some concrete examples. And if you need some more information from me later or my team, we're here for you. So in terms of macro or wider scope policies, we, through the implementation of the National Tourism Strategy that we began in January 2020, are actively trying to spread the benefits from tourism to the whole island. And this means making sure that our villages also benefit from tourism. Also, before the pandemic, 75% of our arrivals were in the summer. By the year 2030, we aim to make that 60%, meaning that 40% will be here in the winter, hence not at coastal areas. And we are one of the few, if not the only, let's say few, countries in the world that over the next 3 years will be measuring the actual carrying capacity of Cyprus as a tourism destination. So for 3 years, we will be measuring how much more our island can take. And by the way, our target in terms of arrivals growth until the year 2030 is only 10%. So from now until 2030, our growth target is only 10%, and that is on purpose. Now, in terms of some specific policies at the micro level, I want to start by saying that we are pushing a lot to include as many bathing sites into the Blue Flag certification. And we achieve that how and why? Because all facilities in Cyprus need to be connected to a public sewage system. Nobody's allowed to throw stuff in the sea. Obviously, waste disposal, you get permits to go and dispose of waste at specific locations and not just anywhere. And finally, with regards to this point, the marine spatial planning policy of our government is coming into effect very, very soon. And this will not only help us protect maritime Natura 2000 sites, but also, again, to spread visitation to areas which haven't yet seen any benefits from tourism. Obviously, this has led to us being the #1 ranked country in Europe for cleanest bathing waters. And I'm not the one saying that. The European Environmental Agency is saying that 100% of the sites tested in Cyprus have qualified as excellent quality water. And some new concepts we're running now, themed beaches. We're bringing out beaches that are plastic-free, others that are zero waste, others that are quiet beaches, so no mechanized sports, accessibility-friendly, etc. We have minimized cruise berths and calls, and actually, yeah, even though cruising is an important part of tourism industry, Cyprus will never be an over-visited cruising terminal. Finally, and this is my final point, all our current and future marinas are obliged to have ISO standards for environmental management. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Very important actions you have taken to tackle the challenges in the area of marine pollution and beach litter. I don't want to contradict you, but at least in Cyprus, summer starts in March and ends in December. So the season is much those of the other countries. I will now move to Ms. Nino Tandila Shvli, Deputy Minister of Environmental Protection and Agriculture of Georgia. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak during this session. I will mainly speak about the renewable energy sources in the country, the potential that we have, and how this is related to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in this respect. Of course, the energy sector is one of the most important sectors for Georgia in reducing carbon emissions. Therefore, enhancing the share of renewable energy is a strategic priority for the country. It should be noted that there are significant steps that has been already taken by the government of Georgia in this regard. In particular, country has quite a potential with rich water resources, as well as solar and wind energy development potential and opportunities. We have recently adopted it's the laws on the promotion of use of energy production from renewable sources, and also the laws which is related to the energy performance in the buildings, aiming to increase savings, security, and independence of energy, as well as improving its efficiency. But of course, implementation part is much more complex and requires complex approaches from the government as well as from the private sector perspective. But when we are talking about the renewable as such, it is also very important to emphasize that the relevant environmental assessments and to reduce the risks on the environment and biodiversity, it's also important to be taken into consideration, as well as the social aspects. That is very important. I would like to also touch upon the transport sector as such, because we have recently had quite an initiatives in this respect. We have implemented tax exemption for electric and hybrid vehicles, which actually has resulted in 42% increase of hybrid and electric cars in the country. But still, the challenge is the development of public transportation, especially in the urban areas, where, of course, government has made quite an investment to develop the sustainable and green public transportation, especially in the capital cities and some of the other cities. But still, additional investments and further developments are needed in this sector, taking into consideration the fact that we have already the national and NDC document, a nationally determined contribution document, which clearly identifies transport sector as one of the key sectors, where energy sector as such, and transport, of course, where greenhouse gas emissions has to be reduced by 2030 up to 15% in the total emissions, which is 35% of the emissions compared to the 1990 level. So this is a national ambition for Georgia for 2030, and of course, within the long-term low-emission development strategy, we are also considering the climate neutrality by 2050. But of course, this all requires intensive cooperation among the government and private sector, and the investments, but also the careful policies, because country which is quite rich with again water resources and biodiversity, this has to be all balanced while we are we have to accomplish our international goals. And what is also important as a last point I would like to underline is that currently, together with the Ministry of Economy, we are developing climate and energy strategy and action plan that could allow us to interconnect these two important aspects, and of course to reflect all our international and national obligations in this intersectoral complex strategy that and action plan that could allow us to further proceed and be, of course, more ambitious in terms of climate goals and reduction of carbon emissions, but at the same time greener in our concrete projects and upcoming investments. That's briefly from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much for so quickly sharing with us the important measures you have taken to enhance the share of renewable energy to reduce carbon emissions. And now I go to my last panelist, Deputy Chairman of the State Committee for Ecology and Environment Protection of Uzbekistan, Mr. Juzipek Kazbekov. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, on behalf of the State Committee of Uzbekistan for Ecology and Environmental Protection, let me extend my greetings to distinguished delegates, member parties, and to all participants of the meeting. Urgency and complexity of today's environmental challenges in combination with COVID-19 pandemic impact have clearly demonstrated the importance of the maintaining a regular dialogue. Uzbekistan has suffered severely from the Aral Sea crisis, which has caused dramatic environmental challenges. Once known as the fourth largest lake in the world, Aral Sea has lost its 90% of water and become known as the world's biggest man-made environmental disaster, with more than 5 million hectares of dried sea bed, becoming a source of polluted dust and sandstorms. In 2018, on the initiative of our president, massive afforestation activities started. Now we reached about 2 million hectares of planting successful trees in the bottom of the Aral Sea. In the same year, 2018, Uzbekistan and the UN initiated the launch of the multi-party human security trust fund for the Aral Sea region. And now we are working on addressing the socio-economic and environmental issues in the Aral Sea region, in Karkalpakstan and the Khwarezm regions. Dear participants, since last EPR, Environmental Performance Review of Uzbekistan, government of Uzbekistan is continuing these afforestation activities also in the cities. So last year, our president initiated the Green Nation Yashil Makon initiative to plant 1 billion trees over the next 5 years. And the goal of that initiative is to increase the green index of our country by 30% from its current 8%. And in terms of waste management, the reforms are happening, and our government has adopted special strategy till 2028 on waste management. And now we increased, since 2016, our coverage rate from 29% to 93%. And the processing of the waste, we increased from 12% to 31%. And our government set very tight, ambitious targets to increase for more than 50%. In terms of the protected areas, for the last 6 years, Uzbekistan has established protected areas in the area of more than 4 million hectares, now reaching 6.3 million hectares, which is 14% of our territory. And the goal in the biodiversity strategy is to reach 17%, at least. So Uzbekistan has also set ambitious targets to double the energy efficiency by 2030. By 2025, after 3 years from now, we plan to launch solar and wind power plants with total capacity of 3,000 megawatts, and with that to increase the share of renewable energy to 25%. Moreover, this year we plan to host the International Green Energy Forum in Nicosia, in Uzbekistan. And we are confident that the event will be an important step to implementation the UN's special resolution approved in 2018 by the initiative of our president, announcing the Aral Sea region as a zone of environmental innovations and technologies to turn the problem into solutions. Furthermore, Global Green Growth Institute has established Uzbekistan's country office in February this year. We are committed to cooperate with leading environmental institutions and jointly move forward towards green transition to achieve the sustainable development goals. This year, New Uzbekistan, the strategy development program for New Uzbekistan, 5-year program till 2026, was adopted. And this is the the most green strategy of our country. Although the environmental targets are mentioned there directly, also indirect the measures like moving towards green transport, green energy, digitalization of our economy, green economy, and smart cities. These kind of measures, indirect measures, are also contributing to the environmental sustainability of Uzbekistan. We look forward for continued collaboration with the UNECE and the EU countries to restore our nature, building on the shared successes and working together towards 2030 and beyond time. With this, I would like to thank all of you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairman, for explaining a set of measures that you have taken specifically in the area of biodiversity, but others also. We have listened from the distinguished panelists, the identification of a set of measures, of a set of actions that have been taken in their respective countries that contribute definitely to overcoming the problems that we still have. So these conferences are also a learning exercise, a share of best practices. So let's take these good ideas home. I personally believe that it is always possible to go against all odds, meaning that even if the situation that you see it's referred to, it's shown, revealed at the Pan-European assessment gets worse, we will be able to go against all odds. But I think that we should try our best not to get there and to stop it before, to reverse it before. And this brings me to my second wish. Today, when I was listening to one of the interventions from the Deputy Director of UNEP, she referred to the dark side of development. And immediately I thought not only of the dark side of development, but the dark side that we listen, I'm sure that you all listen to, referred many times in Star Wars. There was a dark side in Star Wars. And this reminded me that I have always wanted to speak like Master Yoda did. You know that this green gentleman, Master Yoda. And Master Yoda, he had a very interesting way of speaking. So I will try to make this exercise with you to see if you're able to complete my sentence. So, if concerned we are, if aware we are, if ambitious we are, if committed we are, what would Master Yoda say? Successful we will be. And I'm sure that we will all be successful. Thank you, thank you.
And he was green.
And he was green, yes, he was green, right. So, and I give the floor back to our chair.
Thank you, Elisabetta, for these, I would say, inspiring wishes. And thank you for moderating the discussion and for your concluding remarks. Before closing this agenda item, I also want to thank all the panelists for their valuable interventions on how different concerns are addressed at their national level. Thank you indeed. And thank you all for your attention and participation. Thank you.